All right, good day and welcome to Personality Profile here on the Joy News, Joy Prime, and Joy FM platforms. I'm Lexis Bill, and you know, when I take a seat like this, it means I've got an amazing person in the seat. Ready to walk into the journey of one of the great sons of the land. So if I were you, I'd tell my friends and family that, hey, Personality Profile is live right now. You'd enjoy this conversation. Let me tell you about my guest. Like I mentioned earlier, we're shining a light on a remarkable son of Ghana, whose journey defies the odds and defines excellence. He's a world-renowned, board-certified plastic surgeon based in Beverly Hills, a humanitarian whose gifted hands restore dignity to the society, many who have been forgotten, an entrepreneur, a mentor, and a global voice reminding us that purpose, not just success, is the real destination. Yeah. He left Ghana with little more than a dream. And through grit, brilliance, and an unwavering belief in possibility, he has become one of the most sought-after reconstructive surgeons in the world. He's not just changing faces, literally. He's changing lives. Yeah. From the luxury suites of Hollywood to the operating tables in undeserved communities and underserved communities, I should say, through his foundation, Restore. This is more than a story of medicine. It's a story of mission, of manhood, of legacy. Dr. Michael Obeng is my guest. Doc.
Lexi.
Good to see you, man. How are you doing?
It's great to be here.
Yes.
Great to be with the greatest.
Yes, I'm excited because hitherto you were so hard to find, but nowadays I see that you are lurking around Ghana a lot.
You are absolutely right. You know?
Yeah. So what is it? Is it just missing home? Or it's just the humanitarian efforts? Because the last time that I actually saw you was when I hosted the fundraiser for one of your humanitarian efforts. And you were in Ghana with the mission to Agogo, absolutely. So I'm thinking that it's actually more than that now.
Yeah, but now I'm spending more time in Ghana because of the fact that, so Lexis, you're absolutely right. I'm spending more time in Ghana. This is partly due to the construction of our state-of-the-art pharmaceutical plant. This is going to be the largest pharmaceutical plant, sub-Saharan pharmaceutical plant, and this is going to be the state-of-the-art. You know, we have partners like Siemens, who's bringing us technology. Sushin Medicamentos out of India, you know, who is our turnkey partner. So when you put these giants together, you know, it's only going to make it look great, and that's one of the reasons why I'm spending more time in Ghana.
And where's the factory located again?
It's located in Akwamufie.
Akwamufie.
Right. And as a matter of fact, after this meeting, I'm headed there.
You're headed there?
Yes.
So it seems to me you're enjoying everything else beyond what happens in the operating theater. Is that the case?
That's right. You know, the operating theater was the beginning, of course, and I know it's going to be the end.
Yeah.
But I have so many other interests. You know, in the last, because of Restore, because of the nonprofit, traveling across the globe, especially in sub-Saharan Africa, Southeast Asia, and South America, I saw the need for improvement of healthcare infrastructure as well as personal training. So a few years ago, I set up a company called Global Health Solution.
Global Health Solution.
It's been a consulting firm consulting for the likes of the African Union and countries such as Gabon and other countries. So, you know, along all these times, I have come across the need. And of course, this pharmaceutical plant is born out of the need. So you start off as surgery.
Yeah.
But, you know, as a man with entrepreneurial spirit, you know, when I see an opportunity, we try to solve the problem.
At what point did that entrepreneurial spirit get birthed, if I can put it that way? Because I know how deep you were in medicine and surgery.
It's still in medicine.
Okay.
I've always been an entrepreneur. You know, when I came out of training in 2007, I took a job in Youngstown, Ohio. I was recruited. I was the youngest chief of plastic surgery at the age of 33. Okay. But I knew that I cannot work for somebody because I have some crazy and wild ideas. And a lot of times when you stand as a unicorn, it's hard to be contained. But I started my own practice in 2012 in Beverly Hills. I opened my own surgery center. And so I would say that the entrepreneurial spirit has always been there.
Okay.
But it wasn't. We did not unleash it until around 2012.
Yeah.
And as time goes by, every time I travel, I see opportunity. When you see a problem, you solve it. One of my mentors once told me that either you are part of the problem or you are part of the solution. So when you see a problem, you have to fix it if you can. And I try to take it back, think about it, design a solution to the particular problem I'm facing.
That has literally been the underlining factor, or should I say motivation for Restore, because you've seen the problem with people who are unable to afford the kind of reconstructive surgery that you perform in deprived and underserved communities. And so tell me a bit about the Restore project.
So exactly, you're absolutely right. So that's how Restore started. Restore, actually, the seed was planted in my head and in my heart by one of my mentors, Dr. Miller. When I was in medical school, I think I was in third year medical student, Dr. John H. Miller, we were doing surgery. I think it was a hen case. Dr. Miller said, Michael, you're from Ghana, right? I said, yeah. I said, why don't we go and do surgery? That's when the seed was planted. But as a third year medical student, you didn't have time. You were told, you sleep when you're told to sleep, you eat when you're told to eat. And it wasn't until I was a fellow at Harvard that the name Restore kind of click in my head. But this stems back from my upbringing, my childhood, growing up in Ghana. I saw firsthand the power of plastic surgery through Operation Smile. And I've always told the story that we had a beautiful young lady in our neighborhood. This lady had a disfigured face, secondary to a confrontation with her partner. Apparently she didn't want to be in a relationship before the guy said, oh, you had to wait and see. He went and bought sulfuric acid. I don't know if they still sell it on the streets. When we were growing up, you can buy acid to go put in your car battery.
Yeah.
So apparently the guy bought some and poured over, on her face. So for several years, she became a recluse. She did not leave her place. And then one day I ran into her, and I knew the story. Everybody in the whole neighborhood knew the story. This was in Ahunjo, Kumasi.
Yeah.
And her younger brother was a friend of mine. I said, hey, Joe Tex. I said, Joe, I just saw your sister. She looks so much better. Said, oh. So Joe said, yes, she just had plastic surgery. That was the first time I heard about plastic surgery. She's like, she just had plastic surgery by a doctor from America called Operation Smile. So people ask me, how did you know about your plastic surgery as a kid growing up in Ghana? That was it. And I think at the time, there was not even a single plastic surgeon in this country. When I first started coming to Ghana in 2007, there were only 5 plastic surgeons. There were 3 in Kumasi and 2 here. But now I think Ghana boasts in excess over 20 plastic surgeons. And I'm very proud of how the country is going and how these young men and women are choosing the specialty of plastic surgery. So
at the time when you saw Joe's sister and you heard about plastic surgery, you heard about Operation Smile, you never thought of plastic surgery before then. So hitherto, what career, profession, where did you want to head to?
Along those same lines, I've always been attracted to medicine. When I was a kid, talking about between ages 7, the earliest I could remember, I used to accompany my beloved grandmother to a doctor's appointment, and I thought it was so cool how an individual can give somebody words of encouragement, also give him medication, and teach him or teach her how to live better. And I thought it was fascinating. I always wanted to be a doctor. But when I heard about Operation Smile and plastic surgery, I can remember as early as 12, 13 that I said, I want to be a surgeon when I grow up. I want to be a surgeon. So that's where the motivation came from.
Right. Yeah. And till today, you've done, I'm sure, hundreds of procedures. I think the last statistics I found out about you're done over $80 million, $100 million
worth of free surgery.
Free surgery.
Free surgeries, yeah.
What drives you to do this pro bono, and how are you able to do all that?
You get more than you give. It's a feeling. It's a feeling that you are able to put a smile on somebody who thought they never had hope. Okay, we talked about now that plastic surgery has changed. 17, 18 years ago when I started coming back onto the continent, a lot of countries, I think, if you put all the plastic surgeons in Beverly Hills, there were more plastic surgeons in Beverly Hills than the whole continent of Africa at one point.
Wow.
Okay. Ghana is doing well. So, we saw the need. We saw the need, and I knew as a child growing up, some of these kids, they used to call them Insumuba. Everybody, these kids, their diseases, illnesses, their defects were attributed to supernatural forces. And after studying plastic surgery, after learning about the progression of disease or deformities, it's not witchcraft. We have the same phenomenon in America. We have kids with cleft lip and palate. They are not doomed. This is a very simple operation. A 30-minute operation can can change the whole community, and that's what keeps us going. This is
there a particular humanitarian, work that still moves you today that you've done?
What are we doing with Restore? You cannot put a price on it. Yes, this is just to show the public that this is the work we do.
Yeah.
But it's priceless.
Is there the
feeling that you get?
Yeah. Is there a particular story that has stayed with you?
Oh, yeah. I think, many stories. Many stories. I think one of the ones that stands out is in 2019. We are in Gabon. Under the auspices of the Bongo Foundation, in conjunction with the Bongo Foundation. A young girl came, or a young individual came to be screened. She comes in, she has a feminine look, she takes her clothes off, she has fully developed breasts, 36C, bra size, she has a huge scrotum and a small penis. Okay, she was intersex.
Okay.
And of course, to live in a community like that, if this was in the United States, this would have been taken care of at a very young age and investigated. She was 27, and the story still sticks with me. And at the time, we had not done any gender reaffirming surgery or a sex change. So this young lady comes in, and the story was picked up by Reuters, BBC. They were all in the operating room. And the night before, of course, I've done it, I can do it in the United States. God is amazing, let me say it that way. The night before I pray, because, usually in the U.S., we do a case with urologists. At the time, I haven't many urologists in Gabon. And we're about to do the surgery. The plan initially was to get assistance from another surgeon here in Ghana, Dr. Hoy Williams, who volunteers with us. So, and at the time, he was one of the senior most surgeons. So when you have a complex case like that, you want somebody who is more than capable, to be able to assist you so you can have a smooth surgery. That morning, I woke up, I'm doing my morning devotion, I'm praying to God. I said, God, send me a urologist. You won't believe, I'm about to get goosebumps, okay? Going back, when I met the young lady, I asked her, I said, so what do you want to be? You want to be a man or a woman? And they said, I want to be a woman. I said, okay. I said, do you like men or women? He said, I like both because I have both parts. That was the kicker. But, she's chosen to live as a woman. Of course, if I show you the photographs, her passport photo, she looks like a boy. And then she had grown her hair, but she also has the phenotypical female body, but she has a penis and a scrotum. And we're going to do remove the penis, make a vagina.
Oh, she didn't have
Yeah, she didn't have a vagina.
So you have to
make boobs, so you have to make a vagina. And I'll show you the picture. You can show it to the audience. It's on Reuters, so you can show it, and I can have it. But that morning, the miracle that I said, I love God. I'm sitting in my hotel room. I got on my knees praying. I said, God, send me a urologist. I wish I had a urologist. That morning, I walk into the hospital. BBC is there. Reuters is there. The whole media. It's a whole media frenzy. And I go in the room, and I talk to the patient. We talk, we hug each other. She's in the room. I go to change. I come in, everybody, she's going to sleep. Everybody's taking pictures. And this is very common in Africa. It's very common. People, they bring camera when everybody has a camera. And I get really angry because of, this is, somebody, okay? This is human decency. So I walk in the room, and I say, hey, stop, everybody stop. There's one person still taking photos. I said, what did I tell you? I said, stop, and I'm angry at this person. I said, who are you? You won't believe what she said. She said, I'm the urologist.
Oh, wow.
And this hospital did not even tell me they had one, because I would have planned the surgery. I said, no, you stay. So I asked him, I said, have you ever seen one of these before? He said, no. I said, have you ever done surgery like this before? He said, no. I said, we're going to do it. You're going to keep the plumbing part.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I need them for. And then I'm going to keep the functional or the semi-functional aesthetic part. But see how the power of God. And that morning, I saw my mother's grave. I'm on my knees praying to God. I want a urologist. And that morning, everybody who was in the room taking pictures, the one person who would not stop taking pictures, and I'm about to yell at him, I said, what did I just tell you? I said, stop. And I'm angry because we have to put these patients first. He said, I'm the urologist. I said, no, you stay. And we did a beautiful, we created a beautiful vagina. We removed the penis. We took the scrotum and took the testicles out. We folded the scrotum to make a labia majora. We were able to do tissue flap to make the labia minora, and we dug a tunnel between the pubic bone and the anal canal to create the vaginal canal. And we lined it with the skin graft, and the patient did very well. A year later was 2020. It was COVID. Yeah. We couldn't go back. By 2021, I went back to Gabon. She was married to a man. She was excited. Wow. Yes, her vagina was a little tight, because one of those things, it's not a natural vagina. You have to use it. You have to have constant sex. If not, you have to use a dilator to keep it open. Okay. And that's one of the stories that would never leave me.
No, that's. I mean, I didn't even think that you could create a vagina.
You can create a lot of things. You can make a penis. You can make a vagina. But of course, it's not like what the Almighty made it.
Yes.
But it's functional. It's, they can enjoy it. They can have sex and enjoy it. Their partners can enjoy it. And
would you say that's the most complex thing you've done?
It is. Yes, it's one of the most complex things I've done.
Because I know you've done a lot. I think one of the ones that went viral, and that was during COVID.
That's right. 2020. That was the Gorilla Glue.
The Gorilla Glue.
People. It's funny how we've done so many amazing things, but when people see me, oh, you're the Gorilla Glue doctor.
Yeah.
That surgery took me 15 minutes.
Are you serious?
It took me 15, but it took me a whole day to be able to come up with a solution.
Yeah.
To make my own solution in my own kitchen.
Yeah.
Mix things to be able to detangle the glue. Because I had called the company. They said we don't have anything. But of course my background is chemistry, and I was able to go to the lab, my kitchen.
Yeah.
Okay, take chemicals that I suspected or known to be able to break down those cohesive bonds, and also to neutralize it in a way that it doesn't harm the scalp. Yeah. So
that gave you some global
yes, it did give me a global recognition.
Yeah.
But we've done so many other things that that's one of the, I don't even consider that was I would say a strike of luck based on the knowledge I've acquired when I was in college.
What other kind of reconstructive surgeries would you say were very complex that you did?
The longest surgery I ever did was 20 hours.
20 hours?
20 hours. I started on Wednesday at 3 p.m. I finished Thursday noon. And it was when I was a fellow at Harvard. That guy on a Saturday, he was in a happy mood trying to make a table, a Jamaican guy, make a table for his lovely wife. And he was a little careless. He saw the ring finger all the way down here. So he's got the ring, the middle, the index finger, and the thumb.
All cut off.
All cut off. And they brought it on ice, painstakingly reconnected every single nerve, artery, vein, and of course, you have to put the bones back first. And the reason why it took 20 hours was the fact that the index finger, every time that we were about to wrap the hand, the fingernail would turn purple, meaning that or turn dark, meaning that there's a clot in the artery. So I would take it back down, I'll open it, under microscope, try to fix it again. And the saving grace was my boss, Dr. May. Dr. May is one of the most recognized plastic surgeons in the world and also in our history. He was present in the first successful arm replantation in 1962 in Boston, at Mass General Hospital. So he was known for that. And to be his apprentice, to work under him, you have to put everything back together. Okay? And so he came in and he said, Michael, if I were you, I'll call it a day. So sometimes you can't win all of it, but you've done an amazing job. You've been able to connect 3 of them. The most important is the thumb, because the thumb accounts for 40 to 50% of hand function. Okay, so you say you got the thumb working, this is working, you can remove this. And he's going to have a normal life. That saved me, because if not, I would have been going until I got it right.
Until you got it right. Yeah.
But I love to do surgery. That when I'm in the surgical room, when I'm in the operating room, that's my therapy.
Yeah.
That's when I'm the happiest. It's fun.
No, because I was wondering, what's your mindset in these very complex procedures? What's your mindset going in?
You see, I like challenging cases. I like cases that nobody can do. Because, you acquire principles. You acquire principles, techniques, and fundamentals. It's like going to school, you learn ABC, 1, 2, 3. You have to put it together. It's like solving a problem. So, for me, there's never a dull moment.
Okay.
And that's why I like those challenging cases. The bread and butter, it gets boring over time.
Yeah. How do you handle the ethical issues around the field as well?
I mean, everything we are governed by ethics. Like if a 14-year-old came in for surgery, I'm not going to do it.
They're not going to do it?
Of course. They have to have parental consent. 16, right. 17 parental consent, okay? Have I done surgery on kids before? Of course. The youngest person I did a breast reduction on was 14 years old. Okay?
Breast reduction?
Breast reduction. She was 14.
14?
Yes.
Was that a
medically necessary?
reason?
Because her boobs, they were too big. Okay. She has back pain. She has to wear 3 bras to go to school. Kids are making fun of her. So when it comes to ethics, there are certain patients I've turned down. If I feel like the person doesn't have realistic expectations, that's not a candidate. Because some of these people have what we call BDD, body dysmorphic disorder.
Okay.
Where we were looking into a mirror together, and everybody knows that, oh God, you are so handsome, You are so handsome, Lexis. So no, Lexis, oh no, look at me here, I don't like this. It's in your head, it's not there.
Okay.
That's craziness.
Yeah.
You would turn you down.
Okay. No, that's very interesting. What does it take to become a truly world-class doctor or a world-class surgeon in your profession?
Dedication to the craft. You have to be dedicated and you have to go at it. I always tell people I did not become what I consider one of the true amazing plastic surgeons in the world, not because of my own talent, but because I was in the trenches for a long time. When I was in training, when it was time for me to go home, if I'm done with one surgeon, I will go to the other room, another surgeon. I just love to be around surgery. And my first 5 years in my career, I worked for a hospital. Like I said, I was recruited to Youngstown. I worked with every single specialty. I was the assistant. If the urologist needed me to assist, I always volunteered because I wanted to learn. So after working with all these well-renowned surgeons, you can only become one.
Yeah.
So I always tell young guys, young surgeons, I said, pay attention, spend more time. Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan did not become the greatest basketball players without practice, without doing it every day. You can't be a great surgeon without operating. Yeah.
Wow. Interesting stuff. Well, if you're just joining us, Dr. Michael Obeng is sharing the story. Very interesting and intriguing as well. From the streets of Kumasi. Yeah, that's where you grew up.
Ashtown.
Hey, Ashtown, pa. Ashtown boy.
Yeah, OI 81. OI 81.
Wow.
Yeah, that was our address.
I was growing up those days.
It was fun. I lived there till I was 9.
Okay.
Then we moved to my village, Adiababa.
Okay.
And then I went to. Then I went to K.O. Methodist, which was, I think anybody who grew up in Ashton, they would know that.
Yeah.
So I was at K.O. from P1, P2. Then when we moved to Adiababa, I went to Insurance International School where I started stage 3. But it was fun growing up in Ashton. You wake up, you go to Abbas Park, you go play soccer. But it's funny, when I was a kid, I did not like school. First grade, I can't recall much, but first grade, I was skipping school. I did not like school at all. I don't know why.
Really?
I would go to, there used to be a park across from Kill, and I would go watch magic. They would bring a monkey, and then they walk around, they would be pickpocketing people, and I was a kid, and I would be laughing. I would spend most of my day there. Second grade, P2 is when I realized that I have a special talent, because at second grade, I was doing 5th grade math, and I was so fascinated with math, and I took self-study, and it got to a point I got really good at it.
Okay.
I love being in class. I love studying.
What caused that change? What do you think caused that switch?
For these young generation of me.
For you. I mean, the switch from not liking school at all.
Oh, but I don't know. I don't know why first grade. It was only first grade. I remember first grade, they would send me to school. I would cry every morning. And then when I get to the campus, I wouldn't go inside the class. I would just cross the street and go and sit at the park. I don't know why.
I see.
I don't know why, but it was only 1 year. But after that, I love school.
What role did your parents play in that? And what kind of upbringing or values
So
did you
my
share?
grandmother raised me. I was born in Ashtown. My father was not, there.
What do you mean?
He lived in Bantama, and he was not in my life constantly.
Okay.
The grant and the burden fell on my grandmother. So my grandmother have a special bond. And, she saw the greatness in me before I even saw it. My aunts, my Vic, so they always took me around and took me to school, made sure I got to school, I have food to eat. And, that interest and the belief in me, I think, got me where I am today.
That's right. And did you ever have that relationship that,
No, we never really had that relationship, that's a lot, and I know we talked about it.
Okay.
At the age of 9, my dad, basically was married to somebody who apparently my dad claims that the lady had done voodoo on her, and my dad, when I was 9, my dad looked me in my eye and said, "You're not my son, get out of here." And I cried. Okay, it's a long story. I cried, but 2 years later he came back. 2.5 years later, right before I started primary college, he came and apologized. My grandmother said, "This is your father. He's a good man. People make mistakes." I went to live with my dad. At the time my dad was drinking a lot. I didn't like it. One time he beat the shit out of me. And I got up and ran to my grandmother. That was the last time until I came to her when I was leaving to go to America at the age of 20. That I saw him again. But now my dad and I are very, very close. We spend Father's Day together,
Okay.
And it's good.
Do you think life would probably have been different if he was very present all through in your
Probably
life?
so. I think you can't change. I think, life experiences and things that happen in life shapes a person, okay? My father not being in my life, I think made me more hungry. I didn't get angry. I got hungry.
Right.
I got hungry. I wanted more for myself. So you can't change the course of history and the course of events, because all these things together shapes a person. And I'm grateful that I had all these crazy life, but loving life. That I'm here. My uncle, was the financier of my education when I was a kid. I always talk about name change. I was born as Owusu. When I was 15, my name changed to Obeng. I didn't care. I said, you can call me whatever you want. So far as I go to school, you can call me anything you want. And that's why I insist that when people call say Michael Obeng, they have to put a K in it, because when I changed my name, there was already a Michael Obeng in my class.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so to differentiate me from the other Michael Obeng, who has been Michael Obeng from day one, I had to put a K in my name.
And the K stands for?
Kwame.
Kwame. Oh,
Yes.
Okay, great. What's your personal definition of success today?
My personal definition of success is being able to impact lives. Okay, material possessions and all those things, you can acquire that. That's not success. Success is you being able to pull your brother out of the ditch, you being able to smile on people's faces, and creating a long-lasting impression. That's what I call success. There are a lot of wealthy people in this country. They think they are successful. I don't think they are that successful. If they are truly successful, they should be making impact in people's lives. How many cars can you have? How many houses can you have? How many watches? And we've all been there. I used to collect watches. At one point, I had 150 watches. But when you start making money and you just, because you never had it as a child.
Yeah.
But I realized that those things do not make me happy. The greatest joy in my life is me going out there in the trenches, in developing countries, being able to do things that nobody can do. To be able to help a family that eventually helps the community and brings the community together.
Right.
That's what I call success.
Are there certain habits or principles that have kept you grounded all this while?
I believe in God. My God, my family, and where I grew up, where I came from. Not in my wildest dream that I ever thought I'd be sitting here with you, or sitting in Beverly Hills doing surgery on people I used to watch on TV and watching movies. But if you know where you are from, you will always stay grounded.
So when the pressure of the spotlight gets intense, how do you deal with that? What centers you?
God. I pray. I said, God, put your hedge of protection around me. Ground me, give me the time to speak. If you know where you are from, success will never get to your head. It will never get to your head. At the end of the day, we're doing God's work.
Yeah.
This is not my glory. We give all the glory to God.
I want you to share with us something that people wouldn't know about you, or something that people don't know about you.
I got so many things. Let's see. So I would say when I was life is just crazy. Okay, when I was in high school, Prempeh College, I was given a nickname. Okay, Idi Amin. So people would know I'm Idi Amin. Okay,
Yeah.
we were supposed to be the most wicked person in the history, one of the most wicked people in the history of mankind. How did this name come about? And I'm going to tell you the story why. There was a senior named J.B. Dankwa.
In Prempeh College?
Prempeh College. I was in Form 1, he was in Form 4. This is when my dad had come back into my life. My dad drove me to school. That day, when we took our boxes out, I put my chart box up. I opened it up. All the seniors kind of hovers around you. They try and see what's in your chop box, so they can come and get some loot. So I open it, and the guy sees my sugar. So he comes back after everybody left. He says, "Hey, can I have some sugar?" And I said, "I don't have any sugar." And then he said, "Hey, I cry with more Idi Amin." Then everybody started laughing. And one of my childhood friends I grew up with, he also went to Prempeh College. He was there, Kwame Asari.
Yeah.
So Kwame Asari would not stop, would not let it go. And I tried to shake that name off, and it stuck for the 7 years I was Prempeh College. Wow. But what people don't know, you speak in things like that. Fast forward in 2019, I get invited to go to Uganda. The Ministry of Health invited me. They wanted me to work on a project. The guy who picks me up, I'm telling the story. I said, not in my wildest dream that I thought I would ever come to Uganda. When I was in high school, that's what they called me. So let me call Idi Amin's wife. So you call one of Idi Amin's wife, the one who... And then we went to go see him. Oh God, you look like my husband, my son.
Wow.
And that was like, coming back full circle.
Yeah.
But there are so many things people don't know about.
Now that you mentioned, I'm actually seeing the resemblance.
I know. I think I look more handsome than Idi Amin.
Okay, well, good stuff. What a story that is. But are you optimistic about the future of healthcare in Africa for the youth?
I'm very optimistic, but we have to do it ourselves, okay? The Western world is not going to liberate us from everything. We are smart, we know the know-how, but our priorities are very skewed. Things are starting to get better. I used to be so angry when I used to, at one point I never saw myself living in Ghana, living in Africa.
Really?
The only place I thought I could live was Johannesburg. I visited, I said, okay. But it's just sad because healthcare is very important and our healthcare system is not good. Okay? I always say that if all the wealthy people in Ghana put their money together to build one state-of-the-art hospital with technology, none of them has to go up to London, to Paris, to the United States for checkups. But all can be done here because of technology. The Ghanaian doctors are very smart, very intelligent. I mean, you go to the U.S., you go to the U.K. You know, some of these great, amazing doctors that are making headlines are not from America. They have African ancestry. You know, Ghana, I mean, they are from Ghana, they are from Nigeria.
Yeah.
Okay, we take all these people, making these countries great. Why can't we make our own country great? Because of what? Because of the way the system is set up.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm very optimistic about it, but I think until we change our mindsets, it's going to be tough. You know, I've always said that health is wealth.
Yeah.
And if we don't, put emphasis on our health, you know, if we don't build infrastructure, training, and ignore the health sector, it's going to impact every sector that we have.
Yeah.
You know, I know Ghanaian, we get more excited about football. Okay, I used to criticize, or I used to complain. I remember in 2011, we went to Tamale. At the time, the whole Tamale, there was no mammography machine.
Okay.
The whole Tamale, this is 2011. I had a patient with breast cancer. They have to come to our crowd to get a mammogram. I mean, you're going to tell me that a mammogram, a machine is about $5,000, $10,000, but they were so proud that they have built a stadium in games in 2009. And this is sad. And people said, well, you know, the volunteers who come, the white people, they said, you guys don't have this. There was no dialysis machine there. You know, this is 2000, but things are changing. But, you know, this is the mindset. You know, I hope that, you know, this current administration will put more emphasis on health.
In your practice, if we're to speak about challenges you faced, what will some be?
You know, challenges are there, but, you know, I think I've been very lucky. I don't want to play the race card. You know, for a black man, an African man, to go to Beverly Hills and trailblaze his own path, I don't have much to complain about. Okay, I'm grateful, I'm thankful, and you know, the playing field is not fair, but, you know, with hard work, determination, perseverance, you can equalize the playing field.
Yeah. Is there a point that, or is there a point in your story that would say giving up? That phrase came to play in your story. On anything, could be anything.
Yeah, it is, you know, but the thing is, I was so optimistic in life. I mean, I'm very optimistic that I never take no for an answer, but there were times that was very challenging. When I left here to go to the United States, okay, not knowing how I'm going to pay my tuition. My tuition was $15,000, okay? I was able to go to the United States, hoping that I can make $15,000, okay? What was my strategy? I'm going to go to the United States. I'm going to defer one semester, work 4 months, you know, and with my little brain at the time, a 20-year-old kid, 19, 20, I said, I'm going to work every hour. So I'll work 20 hours a day, and I'll sleep 4 hours a day. You know, this is me, I think I'm Superman. And then I said, I'll make $100 a day, but not knowing that there's something called taxes.
Yeah.
So I've done all the math. I said, okay, if I work every day, every week I make $500, you know, and then I can raise that money. But it was not that, okay? Yeah. There were times that I wanted to quit because I was so hungry, you know. And the toughest point for me is when the two most important people at the time died in my life. You know, when I got to America, I got there August 21st, 1993. The following summer, my grandmother passed away, okay? I was happy. I was happy she had passed away because she had had a stroke. And, you know, when I would come around her, she would say, oh, I wish, you know, please kill me. I don't want to live. At the time, if I knew what to give her, I would have done it because she was suffering so much. She died in July. My mother died 3 months later, okay? And that was very tough. The toughest part was I did not have money to come back to Ghana. You know, so I took a day off, I cried and got back to life. That was probably one of the toughest moments in my life. Wow. You know, life goes on and you have to keep on pushing.
Yeah. What's your biggest regret?
None. No, my biggest regret is none. You know, I think all these things shapes you. And now I'm at a phase in my life that I'm so happy, okay? I just went through a 9-year divorce, 9-year divorce dissolution. Okay, if it was for any man, it will break you. Yes, it got really tough the last year. Okay, I had to change a lot of things, but it's made me a stronger person. Okay, I have no resentment and I don't have any regrets. You know, because all these things have come together to shape me as the person I am. And in this new phase of my life, I'm going to make decisions that were so much different than the decisions I made in the last 52 years of my life.
What role did your profession play in the, well, should I say, the failure of your marriage?
I wouldn't call it failure. I think it was meant to be, you know. I have always put my work first, okay? It means a lot to me. And maybe I'm not the marriage type, because I think I'm God's extension on earth to heal people. It brings me more joy, okay? And maybe I've never had the true balance between my profession, marriage, and, you know, being a father. Okay, I think I love being a father more than being a husband. I don't want anybody to be telling me, where are you, what time are you coming home?
Yeah.
Okay, if I have a patient on the table, I want to concentrate on that patient. And, you know, of course, maybe I wouldn't say I've chosen the wrong partners, but maybe God brought these partners in my life to teach me. And I think I'm the type of person I'd rather go to work than go home to my wife. That's me. It makes me happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you had to advise anybody based on your experiences in that department, what would you tell them? I
said, find somebody that you are equally yoked. You know, none of the wives I've married, you know, we are different. But I think there's truly, if you and somebody are equally yoked in your faith, in your belief system, you know, and so many other things, I think it works out. And I've never been able to do that. And I blame myself because I've never gone to God. Of everything that I've prayed for, I've never prayed for a wife. I've never. I thought about it. I said, I've never gone to God and said, God, give me a good woman. I've never done that.
I see.
But hopefully my next go around, I'll go to God. I'll fast and pray and say, God, find me a good woman, you know. But it's not. I have 6 beautiful children.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not looking to find a wife.
You're not going to get married again?
I wouldn't say, you know, never say never, right?
Yeah.
But it's not a priority.
Yeah.
Right now, my pharmaceutical plant is my priority. My children, my plant, my practice, and restore. These are my priorities.
Right.
And any woman who comes into my life is going to fall below all these things. Okay? God.
Isn't that an unfair, you know, start for whoever is coming?
Yeah, but I mean, that's the truth, you know.
It is what it is.
And that's the thing, we're never honest with ourselves. You know, if I met a woman, I'd say, okay, God first, I'm number 2, my kid's number 3, my business is number 4, and you are the last. You want to play that role? Be my guest.
Interesting. Well, I'll be taking the applications. Seeing as you've got a very busy schedule, I'll help you with that. Ladies, you already know the criteria. Go to 4 or 5 places.
God, you know.
But, yeah.
You know, but it's honestly, I've never gone to God and said, you know, we go and pray for, you know, I remember trying to get a visa to go to America. I used to go to morning prayers every morning to get a visa because I knew that was my ticket out of poverty.
Yeah.
Okay, I knew that if I get to America, I'll have an equal playing field. Okay, when you grow up in societies like Ghana where it's all about who you know, it's tough. It's tough to get ahead.
Right.
It's tough to get ahead. And of course, Ghana has changed compared to the era at the time that we grew up in the 90s, in the 80s and 90s. Back then, if you did not know anybody, you were not going anywhere. You know, we know all those people who have got 4 A's and first class and whatever distinction, and they still can't get a job. And somebody with a 3rd degree lower, you know, is heading in a department or a ministry. Go figure, okay? Yeah. We don't live on merit-based system here in this country. Yeah. You know, and America is getting to that point too. Yeah. There's no merit-based anymore, but you know, going to America, I think was one of the greatest decisions I ever made. And we pray for that, okay? Pray for my test, but I never pray for a wife.
Do you think that's probably one of the reasons why?
I think so. Yeah. You know, I mean, I pray for everything. I never went to God and said, God, give me a good wife. You know?
How many times are you married?
I've been married 3 times.
3 times?
Yeah, you know, 3 times. That's why it's not. I
tried for you to figure out.
I figured it out.
Was missing.
The first one, I said, okay, you know, I was 27.
Yeah.
The second one, it was, you know, the third one, I married somebody I've met for 6 weeks, okay?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but so that's the thing, you know, I always try to make everybody happy and put myself second. My last marriage, I meet somebody on December 6th, January 29th, I was getting married. He said, you love me? I said, I love you. He said, you love me enough to marry you? He said, in a heartbeat. I thought it was a joke. Then she said, let's get married. Okay? But that's what I'm saying. I was never strategic about it. I just made the people around me happy. And I have paid an ultimate price. And I have learned a tremendous deal. And I've become a better person. Now I'm smarter. I'm much smarter now.
Well, that's good. That's really what our life experiences are supposed to help us do, right? Shape us to be better people.
To be better people.
And that's great. We're wrapping up shortly because, I mean, I was totally enjoying this conversation. We could go on and on and on about this. But finally, I'd want you to share with me the biggest lesson life has taught you. And if you had to advise anybody who's listening to you, who probably has heard about you, who's listened to your story today and looks up to you in so many ways, what would you be? What would you tell them?
I always give advice on marriage. Okay, after going through 3 marriages, I feel like I'm an expert. Like I have 3 PhDs.
You have 3 PhDs.
3 PhDs. You know, before you marry somebody, get to know them. Get to know them. Don't make the mistakes I've made. Get to know them. Let your family spend time with them, and believe them when they say it. Okay, my second wife told me I don't believe in God. I thought it was a joke. She was serious. She said, I don't believe in God, and I love God, okay? It wasn't until I said, I don't want to be married anymore, I said, I want to go to church. But when somebody shows you your true colors, believe it. Believe them. And make sure that before you take on a lifelong partner, let your family check them out. No, it's not all about the glitz and glam, okay? Find a substantial woman. That was some of my mistakes. We like shiny objects. You know, beautiful people, but it's not all about beauty. You know, make sure that you find somebody who has a good inside and who fear God. Okay. You know,
good stuff. Amazing. Now, what next for you is
Miko Pharma.
Pharmaceutical.
Miko Pharma, yes.
And what do you call it again?
Miko Pharma.
Miko Pharma.
Yeah,
okay.
Miko Pharma. Yeah.
And Restore is also still running.
Those are the 2 things that brings me joy. And, you know, plastic surgery is what funds these things.
Yeah.
You know.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Great hanging out with you, Doc.
Thank you.
You're
Thank
amazing.
you, man.
Thank you so much. Thanks for sharing your story with us here on Personality Profile. Lots of lessons to be learned from it. I mean, I didn't think this was the marriage counseling I needed. I thought it was probably just a plastic surgery conversation, but we ended up having a whole masterclass on marriage. And it's all thanks to you, Dr. Obeng. You have an amazing story. God bless you.
God bless you.
Of course, we're here to support Miko Farmer as well. On behalf of the team, thanks a lot for spending time with us here on Personality Profile. I'm Lexis Bill. Have a good day.
Thank you.